Sorry, Louis, like in a cafe.
Right, so good. So last week we started the autumn theme project. Some people did, and I did a little demo, very quick demo using the Automix oils. So that's what very quick demo. That was, and then what was it? That one I can't remember. It was no, I think it was that one. Yeah, but so I've done a couple of those. I thought this week I would work with watercolours, which Annie was working on this image, and I thought it might be useful to do a watercolour demo. So I'll do that this week. And then next week I'll think of something else on an autumn theme that I can demonstrate. So something like this, I would really try and work background to foreground. So kind of, ideally some of this light here would be good to paint first, but to be honest, it's very bright and white there. So perhaps these little bits here, which are reading as a pale yellowy colour. So the paints I've got are just student quality watercolours that they're tube watercolours that I've squeezed out into this palette. So I just want a nice kind of golden colour around here. So I tend to mix them with an older brush, rough brush, and then use something a little bit nicer to paint with. I'll work from one side to the other. So actually here there's almost like a little bit of brown mixed in, so a little bit less intense yellow there. I'll start with that colour. With watercolours, it's really important to get plenty of paint mix and to use a big enough brush. So that's what I really want to try and convey. So these areas here, just kind of work my way through here. It's quite light at the top there. And there's trees in the background in the distance. And then bring that down to there. I would imagine that it's fairly warm in here, so it's probably going to dry quite quickly. That's a little bit darker at the bottom, so just while that's still wet, I can mix a slightly stronger mix in there. Oh, I've lost one of my clips somewhere. Just move that over. So yeah, perhaps a little bit dark in there, and then I'll go back to slightly lighter mix. And then as I'm working across, it becomes a little bit brighter, so slightly brighter yellow. And I can let those colours just mingle in. And it's actually paler as I'm working here, so a little bit lighter still for that area. And some of that could come up here too. A little bit, again, going slightly darker again here. Just trying to get that down in one hit so that it doesn't have a chance to dry out and get hard edges. A nice sort of fluid wash. These bits here where it's drained down, ideally, if you're painting watercolours, the ideal angle is probably just something like that, just a slight angle. So if you've got a board, you can have your colours just slightly run down, that works nicely. So you can see what I'm doing, I tend to work like this. This bit here I can just dry with a brush. So basically I just dry it out in a bit of tissue and absorb some of that paint. Otherwise what can happen is the paint will run out, or the water will run out of the paint, it all looks a bit streaky. So that can be that bit. I then would work back, what would I do? Probably lighter tones into darker tones. So I think these darker tree trunks I will put on slightly later. Probably work this foliage next. So I've got a very strong, rusty kind of colour. So that's burnt sienna, which is a very rusty looking red. So a little bit of that, plenty of that mixed. And I think a little bit of crimson, something like that mixed in with it. Maybe a little bit of yellow too. And again, I'm going to work from one side to the other. So it might be helpful to draw kind of an overall shape that you want to work in. I've not really had a chance to do that, but I'll just do it by eye. Leaving some little gaps where I can see bits of sky popping through. I'll leave some gaps. If you wanted, you could have put sky colour down first and let that dry. That across. And it's a little bit similar to this colour. If you wanted to make some bits a little bit darker, I find that you'll have like masses where it's quite solid, the colour's quite solid. And then as you get towards the edge of the canopy, you might see a few individual leaves. So that's where I'll try and paint slightly more fragmented individual leaves. Make it a little bit stronger in places, add some crimsons and maybe even a little bit of blue or brown. I'll add a little bit of blue to that. That'll make that a little bit darker. So that's a little bit of ultramarine blue, just to make that slightly stronger in places. And then back to the original colour, that across. A little bit yellower at the bottom here. So some areas quite solid, but try and avoid just trying to paint individual leaves everywhere. And you can have a few on the edges, like that. But try and keep some areas fairly solid, and you'll get a more pleasing effect. In some areas where the light is flaring out, it seems a lot yellower, so you just get some more yellow areas, just sort of more towards the edges, really. And I just work across here. Again, here, even yellower, so I'll just clean my brush a little bit. Just go in with the yellow. So that's a little bit lighter where the sun is. And then, as I'm working across and down, move that over. Back to the original colour, make that a little bit stronger and darker in there. Ideally have enough paint mix and just slightly starting to run out. But use your reasonable size brush and plenty of paint mix so that you don't have to keep remixing as you go. And the tube colours are a lot easier to get a good quantity of paint. And this bit here, that almost starts to blend into the tree trunk. So just let that start to come through. And the same with this one. Some of them are quite yellowy, pale. Let that colour just blend through. I think this is the one with a gap, I think. So there, with a gap. Go with the yellow first, and then if I want to make them darker, I can then put some browns over the top. So that with that top bit. This bottom area, I might as well go in with a bigger brush